Welcome to Clocking In, Voices of NC Manufacturing. I'm your host, Phil Mintz, Director of the North Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership, otherwise known as NCMEP. My role is to drive outreach to NC manufacturers, build relationships to federal and state leaders, and coordinate efforts to drive profitable manufacturing growth in North Carolina. Throughout my time working closely with manufacturers, I have heard the most quirky, curious, and memorable stories. I wanted to turn these stories into a podcast so that others may hear and be informed and inspired. From humble beginnings to manufacturing titans, from tragedy to triumph, I will be interviewing some of these manufacturers who have made North Carolina manufacturing the powerhouse that it is today. Rigging, geotextiles, tarps, cables, all of these products are designed with the use of industrial threading and yarn, but don't be mistaken. This isn't your grandmother's yarn. Industrial yarn and thread like nylon, polyester, and aramid are known for their strength, reinforcement, breakage, reduction, and production efficiency. On this episode of Clocking In, we're talking to a North Carolina industrial thread manufacturer who has been a titan not only in the industry, but in their community. Established in 1942, Service Thread is a manufacturer based out of Laurinburg, North Carolina, that designs, develops, and delivers engineered yarns and sewing threads specifically to solve product and processing problems and add value through longer running times or faster processing speeds. Service Thread has been awarded the North Carolina Governor's Award for Workforce Development, Microsoft Award for Customer Service, and North Carolina Department of Labor OSHA Sharp Award. Today, we're clocking in with the voice of Service Thread Manufacturing, CEO Jay Todd. Jay has been a part of Service Thread for 25 years and has formerly held positions of CFO and COO. He graduated from St. Andrews Presbyterian College with a bachelor's in business administration, marketing, and management, and also from Elon University with an MBA in management and finance. So Jay, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. How are things going today?
Going great, Phil. Glad to be here. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, great. You know, Jay, I'm familiar with St. Andrews College through a summer camp my kids attended when they were younger, and it was great. You know, Laurinburg is certainly a special place. Is that where you're from?
Yes, I was actually born in Charlotte, but I've grown up in Laurinburg. My family's from this area from way back. So it's definitely Laurinburg through and through. So definitely glad to be here and be able to have an opportunity in my hometown. It's been really great.
So did that happen right after you finished up with your studies? You were able to kind of be right back in Laurinburg?
No, as most people probably who are 20, 21 years old, I had no intention to come back to my small rural hometown. I worked for a company called United Technologies Automotive. So we were it's 15th largest company in the country. It's an automotive division manufacturing. That's kind of where I learned a little bit about manufacturing on a very large scale. I'm very fortunate to have that opportunity, but then that company wanted me to go to Dearborn, Michigan, and I had an opportunity. We're closing a plant that we had in South Carolina. And, you know, I had a decision to make. I was halfway through a master's class with Elon at the time. And, you know, I thought about my grandparents in their late 70s, early 80s. And it kind of made a decision. That was one of the things that led me to say, you know, maybe I should stay here and take advantage of that time that I have. And that's one of the big factors, that and completing my education. I was halfway through already. So that would have been difficult if I was in Dearborn, Michigan. So I ended up coming to Service Thread in 1996. At that time, you know, I went from a company that had 1,000 employees in a manufacturing operation to a company that had about 32. It was quite an experience, but what was great about it is while I got a lot of good experience with a large company, I was able to see at this very small manufacturing company how some of the same ideas would work on a smaller scale. And more importantly, it gave me the opportunity to see the direct impact of decisions I might make. So I was excited about that professional opportunity to make a difference for a smaller company versus being just, you know, one very minor cog in a gigantic machine.
Yeah, I get that. That's for sure. You know, some time ago, I got connected with you in Service Thread through my time as a quality management systems trainer, if you recall.
Sure.
When, even back then, I don't know what size you were then, but it was really fascinating what you were doing there now. But of course, you're really larger now. So just talk about a bit about Service Thread, what you do there, what you make, and how you've been able to grow so successfully.
Sure. Actually, when I started with the company, our primary product and our focus was on something called bag closing thread or bag packaging thread. Chances are you've experienced a bag of dog food, charcoal, birdseed, anything in a bag that's sewn shut. Well, we've been for quite some time one of the largest makers of that in the country. Back in 1996, we were making that product 7 days a week, doing a lot of work in that area. But at the same time, the owners of the company at the time had the foresight to realize that there are other technologies for packaging items. For example, cat litter was one of the biggest users of this product. And today, cat litter is all in a plastic container. There's bags that are glued shut. There are bags that are heat sealed. There's a lot of different options for packaging besides just putting something in a bag and sewing it shut. They had the foresight back then to start getting into the synthetic multi-filament business. This is very much more technical yarn. The best example of that everyone knows is your garden hose at home, or perhaps the hose in your sink. It's used as reinforcement, is generally polyester. So we started buying the equipment and started manufacturing that product. And when I say manufacturing, for us, we're converters. So we take a homogeneous product that we buy from a spinner. A lot of it comes from overseas now. And then we twist and wind it so it can be used in a lot of different applications. Back in about 2003, we also added some chemical coating of different products. And that's given us a whole new set of markets. So today we're making great strides with wire and cable, fiber optic cables, for example, things like para-aramids. This would be Kevlar. Everyone knows about bulletproof vests and ballistics. But what people don't know as much is Kevlar is used, and different para-aramid fibers are used in concrete as reinforcement. It's used as a strength member for aerial cables. So this is a very highly technical product. It's a little more difficult to work with, but also is a much more advanced product. So we're able to, over time, move our company from sort of an older commodity type product that was very much what you think of as textiles, sort of a linty spun yarn product, to all the way to more advanced products that we're doing now, that is things like technical hose, things like wire and cable customers, some geotextile items, and then engineered sewing threads that are used by other manufacturers.
Yeah, I heard you mention the fact that you import a lot of your supplies there. Is that still the case? And how's that going for you these days?
Yeah, it's not something that we love doing, but there's not a polyester fiber producer in the country anymore for synthetic multifilament yarn. One of the biggest users of this kind of product is Tire, for example. Most of the producers of this product are in Korea, China, Vietnam. There's one producer in Mexico of scale, and they do primarily seatbelt yarn. But all of the polyester tire fabric and the polyester raw material and tires, all of it's made in Asia. So we don't really have any options. We've obviously had, like everyone else, a lot of really interesting issues with that, especially as it relates to, first, the tariff situation from a couple of years ago.
Right.
And on the heels of that has been just unprecedented container shipment cost. So containers generally would be $5,000 or less. Today, they're about $22,000 for a container.
Wow.
We different months, depending on what month it could be, we might bring in as many as 30 to 50 containers. You can imagine that's a big change. And when you factor that into the percentage of the cost of the product itself, that was going from under $1 a pound. So now you're talking about, just for the freight alone, is maybe a 30 or more percent increase in the cost. So we've had
real heavy challenges there.
Big challenge. A lot of supply chain management, but fortunately we have a 110,000 square foot warehouse here, and we've always managed a supply chain with suppliers from multiple regions. For example, we have Vietnam, which doesn't have a tariff. We have China, we have Korea, we also have Mexico. So we have a really good partner in Mexico that we use. So we're able to shift from region to region as we need to, try to manage that. And we always have 3 to 6 months here available, and that's by design.
Yeah, I right where you're talking, it reminds me of one of the other plant manager I spoke with about the role of his buyers now. It's just so much more intricate, right? You having to figure out all these different suppliers and structures and things like that. He was having to staff up on his buyers because of where we are today.
Yeah, at the same time, we buy a lot of materials, packaging materials. We buy a lot of chemicals from US suppliers. We've seen price increases that have been over 200% for different chemicals that we buy. One chemical that we use is isopropyl alcohol, 99% pure. And that, with all the hand sanitizer stuff with COVID, that went, doubled in price overnight. So there've been a lot of different headwinds and a lot of different supply chain management issues, but I'm really proud of our team that we have. They've done a really good job managing in what I think is probably the most stressful and difficult environment. I mean, we talk about it a lot, and what I have to tell people on our team is let's focus on, what we can do, what we can control, and let's really, celebrate our successes, and then let's just deal with the challenges. It's really, truly that saying a day at a time, and that's, something that you have to sort of hold on to when you're in this kind of environment. Many of these issues that we have are outside of our ability to control. They're really more, I guess, threats instead of weaknesses of the business.
I hear you talking about the focus of your team. And I remember the last time I spoke with you, you were really talking about some fascinating things you do around workforce development and the things that you do with your staff. And I thought it was really interesting. And I'd like for you to talk a bit about the kind of the way you treat your workforce and some of the things you do that's special in this environment of, having this difficulty of hiring and retaining. And seems like you guys have figured out a way to do a little bit better maybe than some.
We've been really lucky that, we've had a lot of opportunity. I think that's one of the things about being what I'll call a small to mid-sized company is that you have some opportunity that you may not have if you have, 10,000 employees. The cost of all of this stuff can, it scales with the number of employees that you have. One of the first things really that we did was offer our employees 100% education assistance to pay for books and tuition for anything from a GED at the very lowest scale to an MBA at the highest level. There's a few little rules that we learned along the way. An employee has to be here for 1 year to qualify. It has to be a program of study related to our business, which generally is either business administration or one of the related fields, or engineering. Those are the two things that really are direct tie-ins to our business as it stands right now. Through that program, we've graduated 5 people that have been working full-time for us, and they've gone from having either a bachelor's degree or maybe not even an associate's degree all the way to getting their master's degree, that same education that I have, which is awesome, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
The key to our program is we don't have a lot of strings on that. We don't say, okay, but you have to do that, then stay here and work for us for 10 years, or you have to pay us back. Instead, it's we're going to invest in the people who want to better themselves. We want to give them the opportunity. But my philosophy, and really the greatest joy in my job as CEO of the company, and now I'm one of the majority owners of the company, is the opportunity to help people, to give them some path to become better. I think that that's something that we miss sometimes, and I don't take for granted that I had that opportunity growing up. So I realize that maybe everybody doesn't have that opportunity, and I look for ways to do that, because the end of that path, there's 2 things about that. One is you're going to find that probably 90% of the people want to take that path. They don't want to go on that road, and that's okay. But that 10% that do are the kind of people that will help build a team for an organization or a company that can be highly functioning. You'll get a connection to the company and the mission if you can, pair those people, that drive they have if you can pair that and direct that towards what the company needs, and it's also what they need, then you have a highly functioning, better chance of having a successful team. And it's difficult. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But that's one of the first things that we did. And I'm so happy that we've been able to make meaningful change in people's lives. They become really good performers for the company.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the team members see that investment and they want to stay. And I don't think you probably don't even have any trouble with that, do you?
No, we don't. In fact, we had one who left and came back. So that was kind of cool. But then we've had another guy who got his MBA, and then he ended up moving. He had a family commitment. His mother wasn't well, and she lived in Virginia or somewhere. And that's fine. It's great. I mean, we're really happy for him. You know, he left under very good circumstances, and to be part of his success, and I still keep up with him today, is just kind of cool. That's the thing is, to me, it's just doing the right thing, and there's some inherent reward in that. So that's one thing that we did. Then we started looking a few years ago at the issue about student loans. So we always pick up the paper and we see different things. There's always a bunch of politics about all kinds of stuff. But I'm seeing about the student loan issue. I'm talking to some of our employees. And one of the things that I realize is not just the student loan dollar amount, it's the discipline having to make a payment and do all of this stuff. This is a benefit that we offered to our salaried employees, and we just started it about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. We took a guinea pig, some young guy out of school with $80,000 in debt or something. So we said, look, after you work here for a year, we will pay your student loan payments. We'll pay them directly to the lending institution every week, and you won't have to worry about that anymore. So we're going to free you of the burden of that up to $400 a month. You don't have to worry about it. You'll be taxed on it. At the end of the year, there's going to be a line on your W-2 that says that you got this money, but you can concentrate on the other things you need to concentrate on and not worry about having to do that. It's not just the money. It's taking the burden off people. But the other thing that was interesting about our program is we didn't say, but now if you leave, you got to pay it all back. Instead, it's as long as you work here and you sign up, you have to take some effort on your part, one of our employees. But if they want to do that, then we will help them manage that situation. Because the thought for me is a lot of times these people might be young men or women who have, families and children and obligations and trying to juggle all of this stuff and then trying to figure out how to manage money. I've been there. I've been there myself. I've lived that, so I can understand that. If I can relieve that from somebody as an additional reason to stay here, it's not just the dollar amount. It's very easy to give somebody a $4,000 a year raise, but that is going to have about a 2-week impact in terms of, wow, that's great. But it's going to kind of fade very quickly.
Yeah.
Instead, this is a reason to stay, not just a reason to be here now.
That's right.
I didn't tell you all the stuff we do for health for employees.
I know you got a good wellness program there too, don't you?
Yeah, we're self-funded insurance. And so it's important for us to help, control that. But instead of us making a plan that's not good for employees, we have a really good plan. Instead, we also pay, what we just added recently was 100% payment for continuous glucose monitors. So this is something generally used for diabetics, but my wife and I started doing it in this pandemic is for health monitoring to see what's the impact of eating a sweet potato or white rice or piece of bread, because for everybody, this is really important in terms of your glucose regulation. So rather than wait for people to become diabetics, maybe help them not get there, because it's easier to mitigate disease than treat it after the fact. So we have some employees that are diabetic, and they generally cost about $28,000 for their insulin on an annualized basis. This costs about $150 a month. When I look at the calculus from that, from just a financial ratio, it's worth the experiment to try. The positive thing there is if one person uses that information and can lose their dependence on insulin and improve their health outcome, their life is going to be changed. They're going to be a lot happier. They're going to be a lot healthier. Yeah. It's going to be better for them, and also better for the company.
That's right.
That's what I look for, is kind of that win-win type situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, so many innovative thoughts there. I mean, it's just great insight there. And I appreciate you for sharing that. I mean, I look at your leadership team here and I see a lot of diversity, young and,
Mhm.
and I think you're onto something at a time when, companies are often trying to figure out how to take things away. You guys are really making some investments in your team. And again, that, at this point in time where people are struggling just to have somebody to come in every day, I guess it's nice to know that made the investment and people really do care about being there at Service 3. So where's the growth now? Where do you go from here at Service 3? And if there are other big things you're going to jump into and change again, or the market that you're in there's so many more opportunities there.
Well, I think there's a lot of opportunity. I think there was a lot of opportunity already, but one of the bigger growth areas for us has been the wire and cable market. There's so many impacts with what's happened over the course of the past 18 months from the work from home, all the COVID impacts. What we're seeing in that area is pretty extreme growth. Of course, the supply chain is a piece of it. The other part of that, though, is the product side. So all the data centers and places and warehouses for Amazon and the stuff that Microsoft does and all these guys, they all use a bunch of this fiber optic cable. And all those cables have a product that we make, and some other people make it too. The demand for our customers is through the roof, so it's really good. However, at the same time, we're dealing with the same issues that everyone else is with workforce. There have been a lot of headwinds for us. Fortunately, this year we've added 45 positions this year. But in order to add 45 positions, we hired 198 people. And again, I think are a very good place to work. The environment is very good. It's very clean. It's not dangerous. It's not too loud. It's air conditioned. All of our equipment is very modern and new. Our culture is pretty strong. So what we've been finding is there's a group of people in the workforce, generally for us, are numbers. And this is no judgment. It's just what it is. 18 to 29 as an age group, that demographic, we have trouble hiring and having these people stick. They don't stay very long. The average length of service is about 3 weeks. There are a number of instances. The biggest reason that we lose people is they just come to work for 2 or 3 weeks and just disappear. And, I do think that some of the COVID situation has a whole lot to do with it. It's worse than I've ever seen that. There's, different stimulus type incentives that have been needed by an awful lot of people. So don't knock those, but I think it's created an opportunity for some people who might not share the values, maybe that we share, to take the short-term benefit versus the long-term gain. So for us, our jobs start, kind of a low end around $13, and they go up to about $26. And this is any of the hourly jobs that I consider a starting point for people. And that's what I try to tell the young people. This is a starting point. This is not an end point. Don't start the job for 13 and think, okay, if I take this job, I'm going to be doing this, 20 years from now. I hope that you're not. You have an opportunity here to start here, put it in perspective. The guy who's our operations manager who runs the manufacturing operation, he started out packing out yarn 2 cones in a box at a time, which is the only job that's less training experience is sweeping the floor. And now
what happened?
Yeah. Now he just worked and proved himself. He's been here for 14 years, and he's one of the top performers. He's also somebody who took advantage of some of the employee assistance for education. He's a great story. And there's other people like that. 2 of our supervisors on the floor started out as operators, and they were lead people, and now they're supervisors. Now they're salaried employees with very, very competitive salaries, and they're great supervisors as well. So we have that path. We have the opportunity here, but it's hard for the young people to connect them with that. That's been our experience, and we're still working on that and trying to find ways to reach them.
Yeah, well, Jay, I have a couple in that demographic, and I know exactly what you're talking about. They're looking far past the work that needs to be done to get there. It's kind of one way to put it.
And it doesn't happen fast. I mean, I can tell you it didn't happen fast for me in my career. There was an awful lot of blood, sweat, and tears. Sometimes it feels like
Yeah.
it got into getting into the job that I have today and the opportunity that I have. But that's the thing, is we do what we can to try to make that path clear for people, make it evident, and to be real about that. But it's not for everybody. So if somebody doesn't want to do that, then I'm okay with that. We would like to find people that are kind of aligned to see that and want to do that, and it tends to be better for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, but clearly you and Service Thread are quite a testimony to the manufacturing industry and the efforts you've been putting in to try to develop people around that and give them opportunities. And I mean, I really commend what you've done, and it's an exciting message for everybody to hear.
Yeah, let me tell you too, Phil, that we do business with people all over the country and also export product, not just in the U.S. And one thing that I hear is the same issues from people from the West Coast to the East Coast.
Oh yeah.
This is not some phenomenon that we have in North Carolina that's unique to us. It's an issue that people are struggling with, and it doesn't almost matter what their hourly pay rates are. We recently lost one of our employees to a company that was offering a starting salary of $19.50 an hour for untrained production people, and at the time he was making $16.50 an hour here. He just this week has asked if he can come back, and he would take a job for $14.50 to come back. So the thing that I tell everybody is it's not entirely a money problem. There's something else. It's motivating people, what people want to do, and how they value their time now. We're having some societal changes where, having kids myself, I know that they may not value money the way maybe people in my generation do. They may not see money as a measure of success. Instead, they may see different things, if that's time off or
correct
leisure activities or different things. And it's not right or wrong. It's just understanding that for us as a management team here, what we've come to the realization is, we're not going to solve these problems, with traditional methods. Instead, we're going to have to adapt and, really think about that and figure out ways to do things differently. For us, it might be more efficiency. Unfortunately for us right now, it's the 65-year-old employees love overtime. So we're working overtime just to get our orders out the door right now, and many people are. But it tends to be with the workers that are 45 years or older. They say, hey, can I work more than 60 hours? And sometimes I'm like, I don't want you to work that much because it's not good for you.
That's right.
We'll work as much as you want. How much can we work? And I admire that so much, that work ethic.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't want to have people burn out or working.
Yeah, we're seeing that too, Jay. There are places that are just really burning their people out that really don't want to do that.
It's rough.
It's really, when you have people that'll come to work every day, you want to try to accommodate them.
Sure.
You've touched on kind of a couple of really the key things that we're in CMBP. We're dealing with a lot all the time. Of course, workforce areas is one thing, but also the whole supply chain thing. It's it's hard for people to get materials across the board and for various reasons. And so we're really trying to work on things that can help maybe get some of these types of products back in the States at some point that you have to kind of rely on overseas. There's a lot of things that our programs try to work on, and we appreciate you helping us out and giving us advice on some of those things, Jay. And again, we're pleased about the success of Service Thread. Again, you go way back. I think it was like 2004, I think, when I first met Service Thread and you guys way back when, but still going strong, still growing. We're pleased of your success. And so we thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us today.
Yeah, and I'll say one more thing. I think right now the role of groups like the North Carolina Manufacturers Partnership is even more important, because what I've come to the realization, I try to do this within our industry, is to make sure that we're increasing our relationships and networking opportunities and trying to work together. Because really, at this point, we have to kind of band together in North Carolina and maybe in the U.S.
That's right.
Because we're not competing against companies, we're competing against countries. And it's really, it's a challenge. And, somehow we're going to all have to come together, I think, and really look for opportunities. And with the dynamics of tariffs and freight costs and that sort of thing, it's possible for us to do a lot more in this country. And I'm hopeful that we'll do that. I can tell you our challenge is not just the capital it takes to bring things back and get the equipment in place, but also the time. So the time and money to do that, that's the real challenge. But we're doing that anywhere that we can and really looking at our business to see what makes sense for us to do here and what to give to someone else.
Yeah, we have to take a look at what role the government can play in some of that too, is to help with these major investments that's really holding up progress in the states. And so it's a lot of conversation around that. And again, you may get a phone call from me and to be a part of some of those discussions if it comes that way. And so again, I really appreciate the relationship we've had over the years, Jay, and wish you continued success there.
Yes, thank you very much. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you for joining today's Clocking In, Voices of NC Manufacturing. This podcast is brought to you by NC State's College of Engineering, the North Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and Industry Expansion Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about the solutions NCMEP offers, go to www.ncmep.org. Want to listen to previous Clocking In podcasts? Go to ncmep.org/clockingin.